Hello, my friend. I'm Kido, and today I'm going to speak about the unspoken laws of creating content. So, getting right into things, here's the proof of what I've done. Why should you listen to me? Maybe you shouldn't. Maybe you should just do the thing and, learn from your own experience. But I guess a couple of things that I've done, which I wanted to start with. 12 years old, I had a machinima partnership for my gaming videos and was getting paid to make YouTube videos. My first business at 15, I used Facebook as a platform to grow a Facebook page for my photography. And I would go to events and then people would tag their friends in the photos. And then what it would do was amplify the reach of those photos, and as a result amplify the reach of my business. I used that to successfully generate money at 15 years old for me as my first business. I was also on TikTok in 2019, so a couple of my first TikToks that I ever posted were generating 100,000 views, 200,000 views. I even had a clip hit 1 million views, really early on TikTok days. I was also on Threads on day one. And last but not least, I have generated sales from the content I've created, and as a result received money for it. So, moving straight into the first law, which is not all views are created equal. We have transitioned in my time from social media to interest media. What this means is that the content quality is assessed first and not necessarily the amount of followers a creator has. Now, obviously, a creator with a loyal following will always have a baseline of views. However, what this means for the average creator or the smaller creator is that tomorrow you can post and generate a crazy amount of views. You're not capped anymore, because if you can tap into a niche, if you can tap into an interest, the algo will push you out to more people. So the quality of your content and individual pieces of content is assessed more than how many followers you have. The biggest thing to understand about views not being created equal is that the format filters the intention. So there is short form, there is long form, there is also live. And a big key here is comparing the intentional consumption versus the unintentional consumption. So for example, if somebody clicks on my YouTube to watch this video, it was a conscious decision to consume this content. Whereas if somebody is, scrolling on their phone and then sees one of my short form videos, that was more unintentional. They had to come across it while they were doing something else, while they're on their phone, in order to consume it. So there was less intention there. Obviously, with short form, there will be people that, actively go to your page and actively binge watch a bunch of your short form. But this is just something to consider when you are creating in these different formats. The way I like to think of the difference between short form and long form and live is that long form and live are definitely more trust building. Short form, I would consider more interest building, as in if I have a bakery and I'm creating cinnamon scrolls, the smell of those cinnamon scrolls will bring people into the bakery. Whereas the long form is more of the staples that I offer, whether it's, the bread, whether it is the danishes, that sort of thing. That is the stuff that people keep coming back for. Ultimately, short form can be really good for raising fast awareness. Short form can also generate sales. But personally, I think long form is where you really build the audience. Long form is where you are able to, build that connection, build that relationship. And hence why I made this video in a longer format and I didn't just make it as a short form reel. A simple way to understand this as well is just to consider, the time spent. So if somebody watches a reel of mine and it's only 60 seconds, whereas if somebody watches an entire hour-long conversation of me speaking, then the difference there is that they've watched, 60 reels in a row. And inevitably, if somebody is spending, hours with you on a single piece of content, then that's a completely different way of that trust building. The way I think about this law when it applies to business is that you don't necessarily need a lot of views if you are doing the business to business route. The example I would use for this is a pool cleaning business. If you are a podcast and you are a pool cleaner and you are primarily making the podcast to connect with other operators of pool cleaning businesses, you're not necessarily going to get millions of views every episode. But what you are going to get is people who are specifically tapped into that interest, specifically tapped into that niche, and therefore the value of your audience to an advertiser, the value of your audience even to you, if you're doing, business to business consultation or that sort of thing, then the value of your audience is actually in the 100 views, is in the 1,000 views, because chances are you are reaching the right people. Moving on now to law number 2, which is there's really only 2 types of content. And every type of content falls under these two banners, which is educational or entertainment. As you can see here, I put, how to/how I do this, or a market report under educational, something that's not necessarily entertaining or exciting, but is still very valuable to the right people. The other part of this is also understanding, the middle ground, because a lot of the best creators actually cross-pollinate between education and entertainment. So it turns it into, edutainment, where I'm watching this thing, it's keeping me engaged, but I'm also picking up little gems here and there. This person is also teaching me little things here and there. And somewhere where you can notice this is in interviews. So I might be listening to somebody and I might be just, relaxing, not really with the intention to learn, but the person that I'm listening to, I'm learning from regardless. And so this is where, interviews can definitely cross into the hybrid cross-pollination. Same with documentaries as well. Like a documentary can be very entertaining whilst also, you're learning stuff from it. And then on the entertainment side, there's the aspirational lifestyle. Some of the best creators that do educational content actually do also create the lifestyle content, because sometimes it can increase the value of what they're saying in the educational videos as well. Basically providing concrete evidence that they know what they're talking about, and these are the results from knowing what they're talking about. In entertainment as well, you've got TV shows, reaction videos. There's a lot of formats that I haven't mentioned, but ultimately they fall under either one of these categories, educational or entertainment. The third unspoken law is that hooks are the most important thing. The way that I would define hooks is they are the title plus the first visual plus the text or no text. The hook is the first piece of information that somebody receives on whether they're going to click through and watch a video or whether they're going to stop scrolling to watch the rest of the video. The best hooks are those that create the open loops, are the ones that create the curiosity, are the ones that create a reason for somebody to stop what they're doing and immediately watch the content. It's interesting, Ogilvy, who is, a advertising legend, he had this quote about writing headlines, which was, you've spent 80 cents of your advertising dollar the moment that you write your headline. Meaning, when I go to publish this thing, I've already spent a lot of my budget on the way that I've presented and written that headline. So I took that idea and I've applied it to modern day. The moment you've written your hook, you've spent 80% of your audience's attention span. Keeping this in mind as you're writing hooks, better hooks are going to equal better overall performance. So the number one thing you can do before you even create the video and before you even, put all this effort in, is to understand that, ideating and coming up with hundreds of hooks is going to improve your final output. Because ultimately, if you can nail the hook, then the retention, the click-through rate, all of these factors that influence the performance of your video are going to be impacted if you can get better at writing hooks. Just a couple examples of things to think about, and there's many more that I haven't mentioned, but the unexpected. So maybe there is something that somebody expects and then you do something different. There is also transitions. So something recently is somebody putting, a funny video that's an instant hook at the start, which is a visual hook, and then transitioning it into what they're creating. A lot of examples of this, just go and have a look. There's also, the curiosity hook. So, for example, the title of this video is the unspoken laws of creating content. If I had just put the laws, it wouldn't have been as curiosity sparking. So really just focusing on opening that loop and giving people a reason to click through and watch can be huge. Other things you can do, you can use the word you. So at the start of your clip, you say, did you think about this? Using that word is going to make a huge difference. The important thing to remember with content is a lot of people, start their videos with, hey guys, with hey YouTube, with hey Instagram, when really you should be thinking about how the content is consumed. So the reason why I start with hello my friend is because I understand it is a one-to-one relationship. I know that people are consuming on a one-to-one basis. I understand that one person at a time is going to watch this. And so keeping that in mind while I'm creating, that I'm only speaking to one person at a time, also relieves a lot of the pressure that comes with creating for the internet. Something else you can use is, familiarity and nostalgia. This is important because it creates an instant connection of recognition for the person watching. We've also got polarizing. So starting off with, hey, the harsh truth, starting off with, wow, you wouldn't believe this. you're forcing an immediate reaction. This one, I think that is a very conscious decision. If you are going to be polarizing just to understand all the things that come with it, I think if you study history, some of the greatest leaders of all time were polarizing and were very comfortable with taking on views that only they had. And by extension, they were able to connect deeper with the people that also had those views. We've got relatable and the pain/joy points. So relatability is huge. Ultimately, if somebody can't relate to you, if somebody is not from where you're from, they're going to have a hard time connecting to what you say. Ultimately, what communication is fundamentally is not what is said, but what is understood. So if you can focus on the messaging of the content from the lens of, okay, it doesn't matter what I say, it only matters what is understood or what people get from the back end of what I'm about to say, then you're going to get better results. The pain points comes down to, understanding this person. The joy points, isn't it great when I do this, comes to connecting, what brings positive feelings to somebody as well. And the last one that I've mentioned here, obviously there's many more, but identity. So tapping into, an audience that has chosen an identity. For example, eBay sellers, vintage sellers, Amazon sellers, pool cleaning business owners, thinking about the identity of the audience and really speaking to that person specifically, you're going to be able to enhance the nuance, enhance the depth of the content that you're creating. The fourth unspoken law now is the algorithm is the audience. Doesn't matter whether you're, shadow banned, you haven't done this, you've created this and it didn't perform how you wanted it to. At the end of the day, great content at scale works. Let's say you post a really good piece of content, it doesn't perform how you want it to. It's okay, do it again, do it again, do it again. Eventually, over time, you do enough reps of great content. If the content is actually good, it will perform. And what's interesting is there is no specific criteria for what is good or great content because it will ultimately depend on the audience that it's created for. For example, if I wanted to create content for millionaires only, I would specifically tailor my message and understand that off the bat, I'm probably going to get less views. Whereas if I was doing mass market and I was doing funny pranks and trying to get the most reach possible, then I would have to present the ideas in a more simple way. Simplifying the idea will extend the reach. If you go super specific and super niche, it may actually take longer to reach the right audience, but if it's valuable, then the right audience will then share it amongst itself and you'll still reach the right people. Part of this is understanding you don't have to go viral. You just have to get the right views from the right audience. My personal view and my approach to content creation is if I can create one piece of content and it helps one person and I post 1,000 times, that means by the end of it, I'll hopefully have helped 1,000 people and through that be able to build goodwill. The fifth law is content is the product. You don't need heaps of views, you need the right views. I don't think everybody should make content. I think there is a select few people who feel drawn to it, who feel inspired to create content. Maybe they've started, maybe they've done a little, but this is the type of person that should create content. If you are naturally curious, if it is already calling to you, then absolutely give it a whirl. I think that if you're creating content right now and not a lot is working, then you need to experiment way more. You need to look at what everybody else is doing. You don't need to copy other people. What you need to do is look at what's working and make it your own. Apply it to you. Creating good content requires consumption. You need to understand the formats. You need to understand that maybe putting the 2-hour-long podcast on TikTok is not the play. Maybe I'm actually supposed to cut up little clips, put those on TikTok, and then link and direct those to the long-form podcast. So understanding how each platform behaves and the nuance behind how you should approach the platforms, even considering who is the audience on those platforms for me. Lastly, I think the ultimate way to just approach content in general is to create organic, find out what works, and then do more. You don't necessarily have to do paid ads for your content to work. I just do organic. So I create the organic, I find out what works, and then I do more. And it's this constant loop of just experimenting with, okay, this is what worked, let me do more of that. That constant commitment to iterations has really made a huge difference. If I were personally running ads today, what I would do is create the organic, look at what works, and then put my ad budget behind that. That's my personal approach. I think there's too many people that put this ad budget behind creative that they don't even know if it works properly and they don't even know if it converts. So experiment more, create way more content, do way more volume. I think a lot of people don't create enough volume. For example, I've been posting 100, 200 times by myself per month, setting a output goal rather than a views or a results goal. I think once you are taking care of the inputs, taking care of, okay, this month's output was I posted 100 times, then you are eventually going to see results as long as you are tweaking as you go, as long as you are experimenting, as long as you don't just keep doing the same thing over and over and over again and expecting it to work. The more you publish, the more you're going to learn. You're always going to learn more from publishing than you are from planning. So that was the unspoken laws of creating content. Thank you very much for watching. If you made it this far, I'm Kido, and I'll see you on the next one.